So what has been the biggest learning curve of understanding Perkins versus Title II?
Steve, share it with the audio, the other video. What was the question?
What was the big?
So we haven't gotten to my section yet, but I think it was really seamless. I didn't have a learning curve.
Really?
Because, no, I mean, I've been doing this for most of my life, but. Because they're running for the session. They don't nearly take it over.
Okay, are you streaming?
Yeah.
We got it.
That's been pretty
You got to plug this
easy to
into your
learn
laptop. This is where the audio's coming from.
Team does.
Hmm.
And for them, it takes but they are still the SME, but I do all of it.
Throw a dongle in there.
Considerably more. And Arbor is helpful. Are we all set?
1 second.
Just down there.
All right.
I think the show is back on. All right. So let's talk about what our newly combined federal programs division consists of. So we have an associate vice president for federal programs. So he's the big boss. He oversees all of it. We also have a federal programs business services specialist. So all of our contracts, all of our, well, a good amount of our travel is processed by this person. And then we have what we call the College of Career Readiness Unit, and I'm the state director. And then all those highlighted in purple report to me. So I have an associate state director for programs and partners, a director of high school equivalency and assessments, director of career pathways, then ELA. We also have a director of adult high school and corrections, a director of instruction and special programs, a grants administrator, and a business systems analyst. Also, the dotted line shows that these other positions indirectly report to me. So the monitoring and accountability team, that's when we start sharing the position. So it's 50-50, half adult ed, half CTE. So we have an associate state director for monitoring and accountability, which is Dr. Michael Tilley. You'll see him in just a moment. We also have a monitoring reporting specialist, professional development. That's Daniel Logis, again, 50-50, Perkins and adult ed. And then we also have a professional development and distance learning specialist. Performance and accountability unit, again, 50-50 split. We have a director of performance and accountability and a performance and accountability specialist. And then the Perkins unit, we have an associate state director for Perkins grant administration. We have an assistant director for Perkins Regional Services and an assistant director for Perkins Regional Services. And so it's literally split right down 95 because we have 100 counties in North Carolina. Yep, that's what they told me. So, powering the pathway. So what does adult ed plus CTE look like? So we want to do 4 things. First, we want to make sure that we align education with workforce and industry needs. Again, looking at the WIOA law from 2014, it mentions workforce throughout the law. And then looking at the reauthorization language, it places even more emphasis on workforce and industry alignment. We also want to integrate those foundational and technical skills for career readiness, accelerate those pathways, those career pathways to credentials and employment, and then expand access and opportunity for diverse adult learners. And I always tell my folks in the field, I say, we have instruction down to a science, but we really haven't figured out the career pathways piece as well as I would like. So that's going to really be our focus in this new program year. So, again, this is brand new. I always say we're in the infancy stages. So, what would AE and CTE look like in the future? So, what we plan to do is begin coordinating AE programs with Perkins priorities. And in North Carolina, since we have the post secondary piece, as Angie stated, our Perkins team is heavily involved with all of our community colleges with dual enrollment. So they'll be serving dual enrollment students as well as adult education students. Policy integration, we plan to implement federal guidance for combined adult ed and CTE pathways. Right now in North Carolina, we are in the process of updating our state board code because for the past, I don't know, 65 years, we haven't had state board code for adult education. So we figured this was the perfect time since we formed the federal programs division. Also, we are going to continue to pilot programs. So we're going to test integrated education and training models with the AE and the Perkins combination to see how that will work. And then we want to continue to establish credential pathways and develop those stackable credentials linking adult ed and CTE. So again, we are a community college state, and I always say that every student that goes to the community college has already decided they're going to be a nurse. Well, there are only like 10 nursing slots at each community college. So we want to help them earn those stackable credentials so that they can start working as they're earning and learning, but then also help them discover other health sciences pathways beyond nursing. And then statewide scaling, we are planning to roll out integrated programs across community colleges and with our community-based organization partners. And so in North Carolina, again, we have 58 community colleges that we serve and 7 community-based organizations. And typically, our community-based organizations are our feeder programs into the community colleges. So all 7 of the CBOs have very strong relationships with their community college partner, specifically for those students that feel like the college may be too much and they're not ready for that large educational space. So the CBO is the perfect place for them to start and then transition to the community college. So now we are going to hear from Dr. Michael Tilley, and he's not here, as you all can see, but he has recorded his presentation.
We're crossing our fingers.
Hello, everyone. I want to start by saying how much I
that
appreciate the
guy changed
opportunity to
something
be
with
part
my
of CoWave
sound.
this year.
So they can probably hear it online. I think it had the wrong speaker.
Hello, everyone. I want to start by saying how much I appreciate the opportunity to be part of CoAbe this year. I do wish I could be with you in person. This is one of my favorite conferences because of the energy, the collaboration, and the shared commitment to adult learners across the country. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you on site because in North Carolina, we're hosting our annual Perkins conference at the same time, and it's an important opportunity for us to bring together our CTE and workforce partners. So while I couldn't be in two places at once, I'm grateful to still be able to connect with you through this session. My name is Michael Tilley. I serve as the Associate State Director for Monitoring and Compliance with the North Carolina Community College System. In my current role, I lead monitoring and compliance efforts for both WIOA Title II adult education, as well as post-secondary Perkins. Prior to this, I had the opportunity to serve at the U.S. Department of Education, where I led federal monitoring reviews and provided technical assistance to states. I've also worked at the state and local level as an adult education program supervisor, instructor, and in curriculum leadership roles. So I've seen monitoring from every angle, federal, state, and local, and I know firsthand that when it's done well, monitoring is not about compliance alone. It's about strengthening the programs and improving outcomes for learners. Let me start by giving you a quick roadmap of where we're headed over the next 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to walk through 5 key areas. First, I'll provide an overview of how our monitoring and compliance unit is structured at the state level and how we support both adult education and Perkins. Second, I'll talk about our approach to comprehensive and continuous monitoring and how those two strategies work together. Third, we'll take a deeper dive into the monitoring modules, 5 for adult education and 7 for Perkins, and where we see alignment across finance, instruction, and performance. Fourth, I'll walk through our monitoring closeout process, which is consistent across both programs. And finally, I'll share a few forward-looking opportunities for better aligning adult education and Perkins to reduce burden and improve efficiency for providers. Let me begin with how our work is structured. At the North Carolina Community College System, we have a centralized monitoring and compliance unit that works across both adult ed and Perkins. One of our core responsibilities is conducting an annual risk assessment for every provider. That risk assessment is broken up into 2 separate items, one for Perkins, one for adult ed, but it looks at very similar factors, which include performance outcomes, fiscal accountability, timeliness of reporting, prior single audit findings, and overall program stability. Based on that process, we identify which programs will receive comprehensive monitoring each monitoring cycle. From a timeline perspective, Perkins monitoring occurs in the fall every year, and adult education monitoring occurs in the spring. This staggered approach allows us to maximize our staff capacity and apply lessons learned across monitoring cycles. Another important component is collaboration. Our monitoring unit works closely with each program office, adult ed and Perkins, and those offices provide subject matter experts in areas like instruction, data and performance, and fiscal management to support each monitoring visit. That partnership ensures that monitoring is not just compliant, but also meaningful and grounded in program expertise. Now let's talk about how monitoring actually happens. We approach this through 2 complementary strategies, the first comprehensive monitoring, the second continuous monitoring. Comprehensive monitoring is our in-depth review process. For adult ed, it's broken up into 5 modules, and for Perkins, it's a 7-module protocol. These reviews can be either full or targeted, full meaning all modules are utilized for each visit, or targeted 1 through 4 for adult ed or 1 through 6 for Perkins is followed. These reviews can be conducted on-site or virtually, and they include documentation review, interviews with staff, classroom and program observations, and data validation processes. Adult ed is broken into the 5 modules of instruction, program practices, data and performance accountability, partnerships, and financial management. Perkins expands those into 7 modules: program performance, partnerships, size, scope, and quality, career pathway implementation, instruction, special populations, and fiscal accountability. Our continuous monitoring occurs at the same time where all providers participate, and it happens throughout the year. This includes time and effort reporting, budget review budget submission, review, and approval, and for Perkins, equipment monitoring and methods of administration. These project processes are largely led by the respective program offices, but one of our major priorities right now is alignment. We're actively working to align time and effort reporting processes as well as budget submission and review processes across both adult ed and Perkins. Because from a provider perspective, especially community colleges in North Carolina, different requirements across different funding streams can create unnecessary complexity. Alignment helps create clarity, efficiency, and stronger compliance. Let's take a closer look at where monitoring really happens, these modules. In adult ed, as I previously mentioned, we have 5, and in Perkins, there are 7. As you can see with a line across the screen, there's alignment between instruction, data and performance, partnerships, and fiscal management. In finance, we're looking at allowable use of funds, internal controls, time and effort documentation, as well as some equipment inventory. In instruction, we examine those evidence-based practices, instructor quality and PD, use of technology, and alignment to workforce pathways. In performance and data, we look at accuracy and timeliness of reporting, those data validation processes, as well as the use of data to drive improvement. Lastly, in those shared protocols, we look at partnerships. So we look at that secondary and post-secondary partnership, community-based partnerships like library services or Department of Social Services, and alignment to the workforce through our one-stop center connections and employer feedback. Across both adult ed and Perkins, the goal is not just compliance, it's answering a central question. Are we improving outcomes for learners? Now let's talk about what happens after that monitoring visit. This is an area where we have strong alignment across both programs. The process includes issuing a formal monitoring report with a defined timeline, identifying commendations, recommendations, and required actions, developing a corrective action plan with the local provider if needed, providing ongoing technical assistance, and ultimately closing out that CAP, the corrective action plan, once all required actions are complete. This process is led by the Monitoring and Compliance Unit, and it's consistent across adult ed and Perkins. And that consistency is important and intentional because monitoring shouldn't end with a report. It should lead to improvement, support, and sustained compliance. I want to close by looking ahead. We see several opportunities to better align adult ed and Perkins monitoring efforts. The first is implementing a shared monitoring bench where we're working together to build a pool of trained staff who can support monitoring across both programs. We also hope at one point to implement joint monitoring visits. Currently, many providers, especially those community colleges in North Carolina, experience separate monitoring visits, one for adult ed and one for Perkins. We're exploring the opportunity to combine those into a single coordinated visit, which would reduce burden, improve efficiency, and provide a more comprehensive view of program performance. Lastly, we're looking to align system and processes. As I had mentioned previously, we're looking to further align our budget and time and effort reporting to ensure that compliance is not confusing, that it's coherent and the same between both federal programs. I'll leave you with this. Compliance, accountability, and reporting are often viewed as requirements, but when it's done well, they become tools for improvement. They help us identify what's working, address what's not, and ultimately better serve our students. And when we align efforts across adult ed and Perkins, we're not just improving compliance, we're strengthening the entire ecosystem of education and workforce development. Thank you for the work you do every day, and thank you for the opportunity to share today.
Oh, then all of his slides are here. So, do we have any questions that maybe Arbany can answer about what Michael talked about? Yes.
With this performance-based funding that you all now have through NC Propel and how everything is aligned to the pathways and everything, is part of his monitoring to help with that performance-based funding, or who does that fall under?
So Propel NC, we are anticipating that our legislatures will pass that. It has not been passed as of yet. And so Michael's job has nothing to do with Propel NC regarding the pathways, but how it will affect adult ed in Perkins is that the FTE funding that we receive, which will be the 41 million, all of the funding will be based in the different pathway sectors because right now our funding model is based on tiers, with the highest tier being like curriculum programs, and then the second tier is continuing education programs, and then the third tier would be basic skills or adult education funding.
See, Albany, I couldn't have answered that. I could have said they haven't passed propellancy yet. Any other questions for Albany? I'm very proud of Michael. He is very young, and I discovered him. He was a he was the assessment guy at Alamance Community College. And when I was in charge of assessment, at the state office, we send out emails, and he would always write back and say, "Thank you so much." Nobody writes back and says thank you. A few people, but not, I mean, he was always so nice. And when we were looking for someone, I said, there's this really nice kid at Alamance. And then Octay stole him from us temporarily. And then he got a doctorate. So he's not just Michael anymore. All right. So my name is Dan Logus. I'm the professional development guy and also distance learning. And I'm speaking today because I was already coming to COABE. The reason Michael and Rob Van Dyke, who is our vice president, AVP, isn't here is because Michael mentioned it, but you might not have caught it. The big annual meeting for CTE is today in North Carolina. So Michael actually was here, but he left last night. And I keep saying to Albany and to Rob, really, when we added Perkins to my job and Lee as my assistant, when we became half Perkins, we didn't really feel like it changed anything except that we had more work because we were running a pretty powerful PD department and we churn out a lot of professional development and we just added them to our stable. And so now we also do a lot of event planning and logistics. In-person professional development in a big state requires a lot of logistics and a lot of systems to get people registered, to get them the information about where it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The location scouting or finding the locations and finding them on the dates that you want it. We're very fortunate that we have 58 community colleges, and almost all of them will let me come for free. Not all of them, but almost all of them will give us space for free when I ask if it's available. A lot of them have some kind of conference center. So we have really good facilities for PD in North Carolina. So when I was trying to figure out what I'm going to talk to you about, I basically can just tell you my system for how we develop the professional development logistically and how we have incorporated CTE in that. So we're going to talk about the PD we offer, how we've combined it, our workflow for planning and delivering the PD, and then evaluating our PD events and what we do after an event. And I'm going to go fast because I'm an old ESL teacher, so we have a very interactive activity for you to do after this. So Perkins 5, really, this is what they offer right now. Now that we're involved, next year, we're going to try and get some more professional development going. But they have an in-person annual meeting today. They have an in-person mid-year meeting, which oddly is in February. So they're very close together. We're already changing that. We're going to have one that starts at the beginning of the program year. They have a monthly update webinar. And then for the past several years, they've had a technology conference. which we will probably continue to do. And I should have just written technology, but what they've been based on recently is VR and AI in the CTE classroom. Our experience in North Carolina is that our folks are really getting tired of hearing about AI. So we're not going to be doing, we're really not, I'm going to have like a prohibition on AI next year. Or at least I went to TESOL a few weeks ago. It was 90% AI. It was a lot of AI. So in adult ed, we have an in-person convocation, which is our kickoff. That's a 2-day event at the beginning of the program year. I operate 1 year, 8 regional in-person PD days, but that killed us. So we now do 4. Dozens and dozens of instructional programmatic best practices webinars. We offer 6 credentialing series, instructor facilitated online through Moodle courses that we run instructors through. Oh, we just did a session on this. Didn't we go to my other session? We have the fundamentals of teaching adult learners part 1, the fundamentals of teaching adult learners part 2, fundamentals of teaching ESL, ASC math, ASC language arts. We're about to release fundamentals of teaching ESL part 2 and evidence-based reading instruction. But these are all, I pay instructors to facilitate them. They're highly interactive, and in order to keep the participants engaged. Without the high interactivity and the high touch, the statistics go down really bad for retention. But we're really doing well with retention right now. And we also have shorter series of boot camps, which Arbany asked us this year to develop one on live, synchronous online instruction. So that is starting in May. But we also offer one on AI for adult educators, which is packed every time we offer it, even though they're tired of AI. So we will continue to offer that because it's only, you decide if you want to go to that. All right. And then we offer a monthly virtual new directors orientation series, which is 4 sessions offered twice a year. So we do take off a few months during the year. This is what my CCRPD plan looks like for the last program year. We're still working on next program year. And then here's my workflow. The first, like if Arbany decides she wants to talk to the field about something, she will fill out my PD request form. Although Arbany doesn't actually do that. The rest of the SMAs, fill out a PD request form. And we find a date and time that will work. We set up a registration system. We advertise it through MailChimp. Theoretically, we review their PowerPoint slides. Yes, now we're really reviewing the PowerPoint slides. It was for content and accessibility content. Now it's also for accessibility. And then if we can get them to do it, we will host a dress rehearsal with them where they get to run through it with us. When we do it with the field loves the dress rehearsal because they're a little bit afraid. But the state office people work with the state all the time. Sure.
Just going back to the credentialing pieces, in years prior, we worked with one of our large universities to offer professional development, but within the last maybe 5 years or so,
that ended in 2020.
Okay, within the last 6 years, we started the professional development in-house straight from our system office out to the field, and we have saw a 180-degree turnaround because the subject matter experts are our instructors in the field, so they have that practical experience that folks can take and use the next day instead of focusing on maybe the academic research parts of adult education. So I would say if you are thinking about offering professional development in-house, tapping your instructors in the field to facilitate, it has been one of the best things that I think we've done at the state office.
And one of the things we do is when we come to COA, we have like a 35 people here. Or when we go to TESOL, we then come back and do statewide webinars. They volunteer to do them. But yeah, the instructors for our credentials are all North Carolina instructors. They do have master's degrees in the subject area. But it's been phenomenal. And it's built on the work that App State did. So if you want to look at all the documents that we use for evaluating professional development, there's a QR code for our evaluation form. And we have a pretty good response rate. It's at least 50% most of the time for the in-person events. Yeah, it's very good. We really pressure them. um, and as it says under the second one, if they have to fill it out to get their credential, to get a certificate. So the in-person events, it's even higher than 50%. Then we use Copilot. We have an agent that analyzes and summarizes the feedback, which I have found as someone who uses AI a lot, but I'm no expert. PD feedback or even instructor feedback, you always focus on the negative when you're reading it, right? Everybody says, "Oh, Dan's a wonderful teacher. Dan's the best teacher I've ever had." And then you have somebody says, "I hate Dan's teaching. He's the only one I'm paying attention to is Dan doesn't know how to teach." When you have the AI analyze it, because that's so insignificant, it disappears. Because 40 people said this was the most awesome thing that we've ever done. And one said, I hated it. It will say one person didn't appreciate but it doesn't give you I mean, of course, we have the raw data. We can go back and look to see what they said, but I really like that it takes out the human emotions of reading the feedback. So something for you to try maybe. And then we share the summary with our SMEs. So there is a QR code if you want to look at what the agent generates for us. And we do edit it. Then following a PD event, we meet with the SMEs to discuss the evaluations. We send all of our documents out to our attendees for in-person events, PowerPoints and handouts, which the accessibility issue is becoming really important. They all have to meet the accessibility requirements now. And for online events, everything is recorded, edited, and posted to our PD archives. And we're transitioning away from this website, unfortunately. So my PD archives are going to disappear for a while. But right now, you can still see them if you would like to look at what we have in our webinar recording database. All right, so now we're on to the fun part, the activity. Do we have enough time? We have 15 minutes, right? All right. So I need you at 8 tables because I have enough stuff for 8 tables, and I've given most of you, I've given every of you, all of you, the stuff to start with. So, yeah, Hector. Oh, audience on Zoom. We're going to be doing an in-person activity right now. The guiding question is, if AI and CTE had to be integrated next year in your state, what must be true for it to work statewide? Arbany, you're going to pass out that piece of paper you picked up. It's on each of these. So step 1 is just the guiding question. Step 2 is you get to work by yourself. Once you open up your piece of poster paper, you work silently for a minute and place sticky notes in the corresponding color in each of the 4 quadrants on the poster paper. So I have to give you the sticky notes. managed to do this online, you're welcome to share what you're doing in the app. The next step is prioritization. So, with the group at your table, choose the best idea in each quadrant and put a star sticker on that. This is yeah, it probably will only take you a minute. Okay. So once you finish choosing your best one, move the stars to one of the quadrants on the big wall. We only have 3 minutes left, but put your starred activities on the wall under in the right quadrant. Or not. Oh, look, they have a lot of them. Hmm. There's one more. So Arbany and I are basically done because it's almost break time, and Hector and his team will be taking over, Hector and Vera. But there is one more step, and I'll leave it on the screen. You can do it while you're taking a break if you want to.
Also, collectively, after Kansas is finished with their presentation, collectively we'll do a question and answer period. So we just wanted to let you know we weren't leaving you hanging. We're going to take questions at the end. We're going to take a 5 minute break and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Online, we're going to take a 5 minute break in person and we will be back shortly.